The rain-slicked streets of Portland gleamed under the sodium lamps like veins pulsing with unspoken regrets. Evelyn's fingers brushed Audrey's wrist in the dim corner of that overflowing bookstore cafe. A touch so light it might have been a breeze. But it anchored her there. Mid-sentence. Heart slamming against her ribs like a trapped bird. In that instant, the world narrowed to the warmth of skin on skin. And Audrey knew she would unravel everything for the woman who looked at her like she was the only story worth reading. Audrey had always been the type to fade into the background of her own life. A 28-year-old graphic designer scraping by in a cramped studio apartment on Alberta Street. Her days blurred into late nights hunched over her laptop, tweaking logos for craft breweries and indie bands that paid an exposure more than cash. Portland suited her that way, gray skies mirroring the quiet ache she carried from a childhood in rural Ohio, where her parents' evangelical church had whispered that girls like her, with their secret crushes on the cheerleaders, were better off silent. She had learned to love the city's drizzle, the way it softened edges and made everything feel a little less exposed. But lately, the rain felt heavier, like it was pressing down on the cracks in her resolve. Her last relationship, a fumbling thing with a barista named Lena, had ended 6 months ago in a haze of ghosted texts and unspoken resentments. Audrey told herself she was fine, throwing herself into freelance gigs and weekend hikes along the Columbia Gorge. But the emptiness echoed louder each evening when she microwaved takeout alone. That Thursday in October started like any other. Audrey ducked into Powell's City of Books to escape a sudden downpour. Her messenger bag slung over one shoulder, damp hair sticking to her neck. The store was a labyrinth of new and used volumes, scents of aged paper mingling with fresh coffee from the in-house cafe. She wandered the fiction aisles, trailing fingers over spines, searching for something to drown out the loop of her own thoughts. A voice cut through the murmur, a low, melodic laugh that pulled her gaze like gravity. Evelyn stood at the end of the row, mid-conversation with a clerk about obscure poetry collections. She was 30, a corporate attorney from Atlanta who had transplanted to Portland 2 years earlier for a job at a firm specializing in environmental law. Tall and poised, with curls that framed her face like a halo in the low light, Evelyn moved through the world with an effortless grace that Audrey envied from afar. Her life was a series of calculated risks, high-stakes depositions by day, volunteer shifts at a women's shelter by night. She had come out in college, survived the fallout with her conservative family, and built an armor of wit and warmth. But beneath it, Evelyn harbored her own ghosts, a string of lovers who mistook her intensity for availability, leaving her questioning if vulnerability was just another word for loss. Their eyes met when Evelyn turned, a dog-eared copy of Ocean Vuong's verses in hand. Audrey froze, book halfway pulled from the shelf, feeling exposed under that steady gaze. Evelyn smiled, not the polite nod of strangers, but something warmer, like recognition. "Sorry if I interrupted your hunt," Evelyn said, stepping closer, her voice carrying a faint southern lilt that wrapped around Audrey like kudzu. "Night sky with exit wounds, it's devastating in the best way. Makes you feel seen, you know?" Audrey nodded, words tangling in her throat. "Yeah. Exactly that." They fell into easy talk then. About how poetry could crack you open without warning. How Portland's endless gray forced you inward. Evelyn suggested they grab coffee at the cafe to continue. And Audrey, against every instinct screaming caution, said yes. They claimed a corner table by the window, steam rising from their mugs like fragile bridges. As the rain pattered against the glass, Evelyn leaned in, sharing stories of her first disastrous hike on Multnomah Falls. How she slipped into the creek and emerged laughing, soaked to the bone. Audrey found herself opening up too, words spilling about her sketches of the gorge's mist-shrouded cliffs, the way drawing let her chase beauty without chasing people. Their knees brushed under the table, accidental at first, then lingering. And then it happened, that touch. Evelyn reached across to steady Audrey's trembling hand as she gestured wildly about a half-forgotten poem, her fingers grazing the inside of Audrey's wrist, right over the pulse point. Time stuttered. Audrey's breath caught, the contact sending a shiver up her arm, blooming into heat low in her belly. Evelyn didn't pull away immediately, her thumb traced a featherlight circle, eyes holding Audrey's with an intensity that said, "I see you. All of you." From there, The evening unfolded like a reel of stolen frames. They exchanged numbers outside under the awning. The air thick with petrichor and possibility. Evelyn texted first that night, "Can't stop thinking about that line you quoted, 'The hurt doesn't make you human. It makes you alive.' Dinner tomorrow? My treat." Audrey stared at her phone in the dark. Heart racing. Before typing back a simple yes. Their first real date was at a hole-in-the-wall Thai place in the Pearl District. Fairy lights strung across the patio like captured stars. Evelyn arrived with a bottle of Oregon Pinot Noir. Her sundress swaying as she walked. And Audrey felt underdressed in her faded jeans and band tee. But Evelyn's grin disarmed her. "You look perfect," she said, pulling out Audrey's chair with a flourish. Over spicy basil eggplant and shared spring rolls. They traded histories, Evelyn's summers at her grandmother's farm in Georgia. Picking peaches until her hands were sticky sweet, Audrey's awkward high school years. Doodling crushes in the margins of her Bible study notebook. Laughter came easy, laced with the wine's warmth. And when Evelyn's foot nudged Audrey's under the table, neither moved away. Walking back to Audrey's apartment, the city hummed around them, streetcars rattling. Laughter spilling from brewpubs. At her door, Evelyn paused. Hand on Audrey's arm. "I had a night I didn't know I needed," she murmured, leaning in until their foreheads touched. The kiss was tentative at first, lips brushing soft and searching, then deepening as Audrey's hands found Evelyn's waist, pulling her closer. It tasted of lemongrass and promise, Evelyn's curls tickling Audrey's cheek. When they parted, breathless, Evelyn whispered, "Tell me this isn't just the wine talking." "It's not," Audrey replied, voice steady despite the storm inside. They tumbled inside, shedding coats and inhibitions. The apartment's dim lamp casting shadows that danced across bare skin. Evelyn's touch was reverent, mapping Audrey's collarbone, the curve of her hip. Each kiss a question answered in sighs. Audrey arched into her, fingers threading through those curls, discovering the salt of Evelyn's neck. The way her breath hitched when Audrey whispered her name. They moved together slow at first, then urgent, bodies sinking like waves against the shore. Afterward, tangled in sheets that smelled of lavender detergent, Evelyn traced lazy patterns on Audrey's back. "Stay," Audrey said. And Evelyn did. Their limbs entwined until dawn crept in. The weeks that followed were a blur of stolen moments. Mornings started with Evelyn's texts, good morning with coffee emojis and inside jokes, pulling Audrey from sleep with a smile. They explored the city like locals in love, picnics in Washington Park, where rose gardens bloomed defiant against autumn chill, vinyl shopping at Floating World Records. Evelyn swaying to Nina Simone while Audrey curated a playlist of indie folk. Evelyn's apartment in the West Hills overlooked the Willamette. All sleek lines and potted ferns. A far cry from Audrey's cluttered space. There, they cooked paella from a recipe Evelyn swore by. Wine glasses clinking as laughter echoed off exposed brick. But beneath the glow, fissures hinted. Evelyn's phone buzzed constantly, work emails. Family calls she silenced with a grimace. Once, during a quiet evening on the couch, Audrey caught her staring at a photo on her lock screen, Evelyn with an X. Arms linked at some beach. Smiles wide and unscarred. "Old ghosts," Evelyn said lightly. But her eyes darkened. Audrey pushed it down, focusing on the now, the way Evelyn's laugh lit rooms. How she remembered Audrey's favorite tea without asking. One crisp November afternoon, they drove to Cannon Beach. Windows down, salt air whipping through. Haystack Rock loomed like a sentinel as they walked the tide pools. Evelyn's hand firm in Audrey's. "I used to think love was a contract," Evelyn confessed, skipping a stone across the waves. "Sign here. Initial there. But with you, it's like breathing." Audrey's chest tightened, words failing her. Instead, she pulled Evelyn down to the sand, kissing her until the world blurred to salt and skin. Yet as winter edged closer, Audrey sensed Evelyn pulling threads loose. Late nights at the office stretched longer. Excuses piling like unwashed dishes. "Big case," she'd say, pecking Audrey's cheek before vanishing into the dark. Audrey filled the voids with sketches, Evelyn's profile in charcoal. Eyes fierce and tender, but doubt crept in. A whisper asking if she was enough. It culminated on a rainy Tuesday. Audrey waited at their favorite cafe. Table set with 2 steaming lattes. Heart buoyed by Evelyn's earlier promise, can't wait to see you. Minutes ticked to hours. The text came at 9, stuck at work. Rain check. Audrey stared at the screen. Rain mirroring the sting in her eyes. She walked home alone. The touch on her wrist now a phantom ache. Wondering if moments like that were meant to stay, or slip away. The doubt settled in Audrey's bones like the first frost on Portland's bridges. Brittle and unyielding. She replayed that bookstore touch in her mind. The way Evelyn's fingers had lingered. Pulse syncing with her own. But now it felt distant. A Polaroid fading at the edges. Work became her refuge, endless revisions for a startup's rebrand. Pixels blurring into numbness. Friends noticed. Her roommate Jess from the design co-op pulling her aside one evening over cheap tacos. You're glowing less. AUD. What's eating you? Audrey shrugged it off with a half-smile. Blaming deadlines. But Jess's eyes narrowed. Knowing better. Portland's queer scene pulsed around them, nights at Q Center mixers. Brunches at Screen Door where mimosas flowed and stories of heartbreak swapped like trading cards, but Audrey demurred. Claiming fatigue. Evelyn. Meanwhile. Drowned in the firm's pressure cooker. The environmental case, a class action against a logging conglomerate, demanded her full surrender. Depositions bleeding into weekends. She thrived on the adrenaline. The courtroom dance of words as weapons. But it carved hollows under her eyes. Atlanta roots tugged too, her mother's voicemails piled up. Laced with passive barbs about finding a nice man and when are you visiting? Evelyn deleted them unread. But the weight lingered. Audrey was her anchor. Texts like lifelines, miss your laugh. Draw me something silly? Yet guilt gnawed, cancelled plans stacking like accusations. She compensated with grand gestures, surprise tickets to a Decembrist show at the Crystal Ballroom. Where they swayed in the balcony. Evelyn's arms around Audrey's waist. Singing off-key into her ear. You're my favorite plot twist, Evelyn murmured amid the crowd's roar. And Audrey melted. Forgiving the absences in the heat of the moment. Their intimacy deepened in fits and starts. Winter solstice brought a snow-dusted escape to Timberline Lodge on Mount Hood. The alpine air crisp as they snowshowed through evergreens heavy with white. In their room. Fire crackling in the stone hearth. Evelyn undressed Audrey slowly. Candlelight gilding her skin. Let me worship you, she whispered. Lips trailing fire down Audrey's spine. Hands coaxing gasps that echoed off timber beams. Audrey surrendered. Fingers clutching silk sheets. Evelyn's name a prayer on her tongue. They explored each other with the hunger of new lovers tempered by trust, Evelyn's tongue teasing sensitive folds until Audrey shattered. Then switching. Audrey's mouth drawing moans from Evelyn like music. Afterward. Wrapped in wool blankets. They shared dreams, Audrey's vague hopes of a gallery show. Evelyn's fantasy of ditching law for non-profit advocacy. We could build something real, Evelyn said. Tracing Audrey's knuckles. You and me against the world. But the world intruded. Back in the city. Evelyn's ex. Riley, a sharp-tongued journalist from Seattle, re-entered the frame via a work conference. They crossed paths at a networking mixer in the lobby bar of the Nines. Old chemistry sparking over bourbon neat. Riley's laugh was familiar. Her touch on Evelyn's elbow casual but charged. You look good, Ev. Portland softening those edges? One drink led to two. Confession spilling, Riley's recent breakup. Evelyn's veiled frustrations. It ended in Riley's hotel room. A blur of regret-fueled urgency, clothes shed in haste. Bodies colliding with the desperation of unresolved what-ifs. Evelyn slipped out at dawn. Shame burning like acid. Vowing it was a lapse. A ghost exorcised. She buried it. Doubling down on Audrey. New Year's Eve found them on the rooftop of Evelyn's building. City fireworks blooming like false promises. Evelyn pulled a velvet box from her coat, inside. Matching silver bracelets etched with coordinates of their first kiss. To moments that stay, she toasted. Fastening one on Audrey's wrist. They made love under the stars. Slow and sacred. Evelyn's hands reverent. Erasing any trace of phantom touches. Audrey felt whole. The metal cool against her skin a talisman. Spring thawed the chill. But not the undercurrents. Audrey landed a steady gig illustrating for a local zine. Her style, bold lines softened by watercolor bleeds, catching eyes. She poured Evelyn into her work, portraits of women with eyes like storm clouds. Wrists adorned in silver. They hosted a dinner for friends at Evelyn's, potluck chaos with Jess's vegan lasagna and a neighbor's blues guitar strumming low. Evelyn shone as host, her laugh bridging gaps. But Audrey caught the flicker, a text lighting her phone. Quickly dismissed. Client, Evelyn mouthed. But doubt slithered back. The fracture widened in April. During cherry blossom season at the Japanese garden. They wandered koi ponds. Petals drifting like confetti. When Evelyn's phone rang insistent. She stepped away. Voice low and clipped. Audrey pretended to study a lantern. But words carried, Riley. It's not. I can't. The name landed like a slap. When Evelyn returned. Face flushed. Audrey's question hung unspoken. Everything okay? She asked instead. Voice thin. Fine. Just work drama. But the lie hung heavy. That night? In bed. Audrey reached for her. But Evelyn turned away. Feigning exhaustion. The space between them yawned. Cold as the Willamette in flood. Audrey confronted it days later. Over coffee at Coava, bitter brew mirroring her mood. Who's Riley? She asked. Bracelet glinting accusingly. Evelyn paled. Then crumbled. The story tumbling out, the conference. The weakness? The immediate regret. It meant nothing. You're everything. Tears streaked her cheeks. Hands pleading. Audrey's world tilted. Betrayal bloomed sharp. Twisting the touch on her wrist into mockery. How do I trust this? She whispered. Standing abruptly. Chair scraping like a wound. She fled to her studio. Sketches tearing under frantic hands. Colors bleeding into rage. Nights blurred, whiskey shots at Sassy's. A dive bar where drag queens lip-synced heartbreak anthems. Jess holding her hair back in the bathroom as sobs racked her frame. Evelyn unraveled in parallel. Pacing her apartment. Calling Riley to sever ties with venomous finality. She showed up at Audrey's door at midnight. Soaked from rain. Eyes red-rimmed. I broke us because I couldn't break free of old me. But I choose you, every day. If you'll let me. Audrey slammed the door. But the echo lingered. A crack in her armor. Weeks stretched taut. Audrey threw herself into art. A series on fractured intimacies gaining buzz at a first Thursday gallery walk. Evelyn respected the space. Sending care packages, her favorite matcha. Notes scrawled with poetry fragments. Isolation clawed at Audrey. The city's vibrancy mocking her solitude. One evening. Hiking Forest Park alone. She collapsed against a cedar. The memory of Evelyn's touch resurfacing not as pain. But ache. She texted, need time. But not forever. Healing's first thread wove tentative. They met at a neutral ground, the bookstore cafe. Ghosts and all. Conversation skirted edges. Then dove deep, Evelyn owning her patterns of escape. Audrey voicing fears of invisibility. No kisses. Just hands across the table. Fingers linking like fragile bridges. Rebuild slow, Evelyn proposed. And Audrey nodded. The wrist beneath her sleeve tingling anew. Summer hummed in. Tentative blooms. They dated anew, awkward brunches at Pine State Biscuits. Where biscuits drowned in gravy symbolized second chances. Laughter returned. Edged with caution. Intimacy rekindled in whispers, a park bench makeout under Doug firs. Evelyn's hand slipping under Audrey's shirt. Eliciting shivers. But trust was a muscle. Atrophied and sore. The crisis peaked at Evelyn's firm retreat in Bend, Oregon, whitewater rafting on the Deschutes. Team-building charades by bonfire. Riley appeared. Uninvited via a mutual colleague. Her presence a lit fuse. Over Esmores. Riley cornered Evelyn, you deserve wild. Not safe. Temptation flared. But Evelyn walked away. Heart pounding. Dialing Audrey from the lodge porch. I almost slipped again. But I didn't. I won't. The confession, raw and unprompted, was the turning point. Audrey drove through the night. Arriving at dawn. They argued in the parking lot, voices rising over engine hums, then collapsed into embrace. Tears salting skin. We're messy humans, Audrey said. But worth the fight. In their room. Lovemaking was cathartic, urgent kisses bruising lips. Bodies grinding with forgiven fury. Climaxes crashing like rapids tamed. Back in Portland, they sought counsel, therapy sessions at a queer-affirming clinic in Southeast, where a counselor named Mira unpacked layers, Evelyn's abandonment wounds from her father's exit, Audrey's internalized shame from Ohio pews. Progress was nonlinear, a weekend getaway to the Oregon coast, where they wrote letters to their younger selves, burying them in the sand at Oswald West. Romance bloomed domestic, Evelyn learning to knead dough for Audrey's sourdough obsession, Audrey curating playlists for Evelyn's commutes. Yet shadows lingered. Evelyn's promotion demanded more hours, testing boundaries. Audrey's gallery show loomed, nerves fraying threads. One August evening, storm clouds gathering over the Hawthorne Bridge. They clashed, Audrey accusing neglect, Evelyn snapping about pressure. Words flew like hail, "You're suffocating me." Door slammed. Silence descended. The silence after the slam echoed through Audrey's apartment like a void-swallowing sound, leaving only the distant rumble of thunder over the Willamette. She paced the worn hardwood, fists clenched, replaying Evelyn's parting shot, "I need air. AUD. Not chains." It stung deeper than the betrayal months prior. Because this time it felt self-inflicted, her fear manifesting as control, pushing the woman she loved toward the edge. Portland's summer storms mirrored her turmoil. Rain lashing windows as she curled on the couch. Sketchpad abandoned. Lines jagged and unfinished. Jess found her there at midnight. Eyes swollen, offering chamomile and a listening ear. "Love's not a straight line, babe. But running from it? That's the real betrayal." Audrey nodded. But sleep evaded. Dreams fractured by wrists slipping from grasp. Evelyn drove aimlessly that night, wipers slashing at the downpour, ending up at a 24-hour diner on Sandy Boulevard. Over black coffee and half-eaten fries. She journaled furiously, pages filling with admissions, her terror of stagnation, rooted in Atlanta's suffocating expectations, now projecting onto Audrey. The promotion's golden handcuffs loomed. A senior associate role promising equity but devouring soul. She texted Riley in a weak moment, not for reconciliation, but closure, "We're poison. Stay gone." The reply came swift, finally wise. Dawn found her at the shelter, sorting donations with trembling hands. The women's stories of resilience a balm and a mirror. Reconnection came haltingly. A week later at a neutral cafe in Nob Hill. They sat across scarred oak, steam curling from espressos like hesitant offerings. Evelyn spoke first. Voice steady, "I lashed out because I'm scared. Success feels like a trap. And you're the only real thing." Audrey's turn, "I cling because losing you once nearly broke me. But that's my work. Not yours. No resolutions. Just agreements, weekly check-ins. No contact cooling periods when heat rose." Vulnerability cracked them open further. Evelyn shared her father's abandonment at 12. The void filled with overachievement. Audrey confessed the church's exile. How her first kiss with a girl behind the bleachers ended in prayer circles and isolation. Fall foliage painted the city in fire, mirroring their tentative thaw. They navigated dates with intention, a pottery class at the mudroom, where thrown clay symbolized reshaping. Evelyn's bowl warped comically. Audrey's vase leaning like a drunk, laughter bubbled, easing knots. Intimacy returned layered, nights at Evelyn's, where they mapped bodies with words first, "Here. When you kiss my thigh, it unravels me." Touches followed. Deliberate, Evelyn's fingers circling Audrey's navel. Drawing sighs, Audrey's nails grazing Evelyn's inner arm, eliciting gooseflesh. Orgasms built slow, waves cresting in tandem. Afterglow spent tracing constellations on sweat-damp skin. But crisis brewed external now. Evelyn's firm hit a scandal, internal emails leaked, revealing corner-cutting on the logging case. Her name tangled in the web. Reporters swarmed the lobby. Headlines screaming eco-warriors or corporate puppets. Evelyn's inbox flooded with subpoenas. Sleep shattered by nightmares of perjury. She withdrew, canceling plans. The old pattern resurfacing. Audrey pressed gently, "Lean on me." But Evelyn snapped. "This could end everything. I can't drag you under." The chasm widened. Audrey feeling like an accessory to an unraveling life. Audrey channeled it into art. Her gallery show at Blue Sky, wrist marks, traces of touch, a raw exposition of their journey. Charcoals of intertwined limbs. Watercolors bleeding betrayal into bloom. Opening night buzzed, collectors murmuring. Jess toasting with Prosecco. Evelyn arrived late. Disheveled in a trench coat. Eyes scanning into locking on Audrey mid-conversation with the curator. She hung back. Pride warring with ache. Until Audrey spotted her. Crossing the room like fate. You came. Evelyn's nod. Then pull into a shadowed alcove, wouldn't miss your triumph. The kiss there was fierce. Tongues clashing with unspoken apologies. Hands fisting fabric. The night peaked in confession. Over post-show whiskey at the Jupiter. Evelyn laid bare the scandal's guts, pressure to bury evidence. Her quiet dissent ignored. I'm whistleblowing. Tomorrow. Audrey's hand covered hers, then we'll face the fallout together. Resolve solidified their bond. Evelyn crashing at Audrey's. Bodies entwining for solace, Evelyn's head on Audrey's chest. Heartbeat a lullaby, dawn fingers exploring familiar curves. Lovemaking tender. A reclaiming. Fallout hit like a nor'easter. Evelyn's press conference, flanked by lawyers. Voice unwavering, ignited media frenzy. Protests erupted outside the firm. Signs waving justice over timber. Death threats pinged her phone. Forcing a temporary relocation to Audrey's studio. Nights blurred into vigils, takeout curries on the fire escape. Watching Willamette barges glide. Audrey became sentinel. Fielding calls. Brewing endless tea. Intimacy turned survival, quickies against kitchen counters. Evelyn's moans muffled in Audrey's neck, slow mornings in bed. Where fingers delved deep. Drawing releases that washed away fear. Betrayal struck from within. A colleague. Marcus, Evelyn's mentor. Silver-haired and silver-tongued, leaked her notes to the defense. Twisting them to paint her unreliable. Court summons followed. Evelyn deposed in a sterile room. Questions probing like scalpels. Did you fabricate evidence? The opposing counsel sneered. Evelyn's no rang clear. But doubt seated, had ambition blinded her? Audrey attended the hearing. Gripping the bench. Her presence a silent vow. Crisis crested at a safehouse retreat in the Cascades. Arranged by the firm's crisis team. Isolated cabin. Pines whispering secrets. They arrived frayed, Evelyn hollow-cheeked. Audrey's sketches frantic. First night. Argument exploded, Evelyn accusing Audrey of martyrdom. You deserve better than my mess. Audrey firing back. I'm here because I choose the mess with you. Words dissolved into sobs. Bodies colliding on the rug, kisses bruising. Hands clawing. Penetration with fingers urgent. Climaxes tearing cries from throats. Exhaustion brought clarity, we're stronger fractured, Evelyn gasped. Because we mend. Healing's path wound through therapy intensives. Mira facilitating joint sessions via Zoom from the cabin. They unpacked Marcus's knife twist, Evelyn's grief over betrayed mentorship. Audrey's rage at systemic rot. Community rallied, queer lawyers network fundraisers. Zine features on Audrey's work tying art to activism. Evelyn testified again. Her poise cracking the opposition. Leading to settlements favoring plaintiffs. Winter solstice circled back. A year from their hood escape. They returned to Timberline. Snow deeper. Heart scarred but supple. By the fire. Evelyn knelt, not proposal. But pledge, I vow to show up. Broken bits and all. Audrey pulled her up. Bracelets clinking, and I vow to hold space. Without cages. Lovemaking that night was symphony, positions shifting like seasons. Mouths and hands composing release after release. Bodies a canvas of healed marks. Portland welcomed spring with resolve. Evelyn resigned. Pivoting to a non-profit suing polluters pro bono. Audrey's series sold out. Funding a shared lease on a Hawthorne bungalow, exposed beams. Garden plot for tomatoes. Domesticity bloomed, Evelyn's southern cornbread sundaes. Audrey's mural on their fence. Vines of color climbing brick. Yet the ultimate test loomed. Evelyn's mother announced a visit, uninvited. Post-scandal curiosity veiled as concern. Atlanta steel in her voice over speakerphone, time to meet this friend. Tension coiled, Evelyn's old wounds festered. Audrey offered distance. But Evelyn insisted, your family now. The airport reunion was Arctic. Margaret, prim bob. Pearl necklace, eyed Audrey's tattoos. Lips thinning. Dinner at their home devolved, probing questions on lifestyles, barbs about wasted potential. Evelyn defended. Voice rising, this is love. Mum. Real as yours. Margaret's retort, love doesn't destroy careers. Door closed on her departure. Evelyn shattered, sobs on the kitchen floor. Audrey cradling. Whispering affirmations. In the quiet aftermath of Margaret's exit, the bungalow felt both sanctuary and sieve. Every creak a reminder of fractures mended and those still spiderwebbing. Audrey held Evelyn through the night. Her back a map of tensions knotted tight. Breath sinking until dawn painted the room in reluctant gold. She'll come around, Audrey murmured. Though doubt laced her words, knowing the South's grip on kin. The slow thaw of acceptance. Evelyn stirred. Eyes shadowed, or she won't. But I can't shrink for her anymore. That morning? Over oatmeal studded with garden blueberries. They plotted boundaries, a mediated call with a family therapist. Letters left unsent until ready. Vulnerability. Once a fault line. Now fortified them. Evelyn's hand found Audrey's wrist across the table. Thumb pressing the pulse point and echo of their origin. A touch saying, we endure. Summer unfurled lush. The city pulsing with pride's rainbow tide. They marched in the parade. Evelyn's arm linked firm in Audrey's. Signs aloft, love logs out corruption. Cheers washed over them. Confetti sticking to sweat-slick skin. A collective exhale against the world's grind. Back home. Aftershocks lingered, community barbecues at Colonel Summers Park. Where queer elders shared war stories of Stonewall echoes in Portland's alleys. Audrey absorbed it. Her art evolving, installations now. Wire wrists entwined with LED veins. Pulsing light at a southeast gallery. Evelyn attended every vernissage. Pride swelling her chest. Whispering mid-crowd. You make beauty from our chaos. Intimacy flowered deeper. Roots delving past surface. Evenings on the porch swing. Fireflies winking like approvals. Led to explorations unbound, Evelyn straddling Audrey's lap. Dresses hiked. Grinding slow to the rhythm of crickets, Audrey pinning Evelyn to the kitchen island post-dinner. Tongue delving between thighs until pleas dissolved to shudders. They experimented with toys from a discreet order, silken straps harnessing Evelyn's hips. Thrusting deliberate. Eyes locked in mutual unraveling. Each peak was communion. Bodies affirming what words sometimes faltered, you are home. Conflict resurfaced insidious. Not from without but within, their growth's growing pains. Evelyn's nonprofit thrived. Cases stacking like cordwood. But burnout shadowed her steps. Irritability sparking over trifles, forgotten grocery lists. Audrey's late nights at the studio. You're pulling away again, Audrey accused one dusk. Paint smudged on her cheek like war paint. Evelyn's retort, and you're mothering me into resentment. The fight escalated in the garden. Trowels dropped amid tomato vines. Voices carrying to neighbors' fences. Evelyn stormed to the guest room. Door clicking shut like a period. Audrey sought solace in the co-op. Jess's arms a platonic harbor over IPAs at the Lovecraft. Space isn't severance, Jess counseled. It's breath. Alone. Audrey journaled, pages of fears, abandonment's echo. The terror of loving loud only to lose. She texted Evelyn at midnight, I hate fighting you. Let's talk tomorrow. Love. Always. Reply came swift, me too. Breakfast. Reconciliation dawned over farmstand eggs. Voices soft as mist. Evelyn admitted exhaustion's mask, success feels like chasing my father's ghost, never enough. Audrey confessed control's claw, I armor up because bear feels breakable. They recommitted, date nights enforced. Therapy biweekly. A shared Google Calendar color-coded for levity. Laughter crept back. Evelyn's foot nudging Audrey's under cafe tables. Winks across crowded rooms. Autumn's palette deepened resolve. A joint project bloomed, Evelyn commissioning Audrey for the nonprofit's annual report, illustrations of resilient forests. Wrists of roots interlocking. Collaboration sparked synergy. Late nights at the drafting table dissolving into dalliances on the rug. Pencils scattered like fallen leaves. Evelyn's touch grew surer. Fingers mapping Audrey's freckles like stars, Audrey's sketches captured Evelyn's essence, curls wild. Eyes alight with purpose. Crisis crested unexpected, a health scare. Audrey's routine checkup flagging a lump, Ultrasound shadows looming. Waiting room purgatory tested them, Evelyn's hand vice-tight on Audrey's. Mantras murmured, whatever it is. We're it. Biopsy results benign. But the scare stripped illusions. Catalyzing candor. Hospital discharge found them in the Mazda. Evelyn pulling over on Burnside, life's too damn short for half measures. Marry me? Not today. But someday, when we're ready. Audrey's yes was tear-choked. Kiss sealing it amid traffic's honk. Healing's arc bent toward legacy. Evelyn's mother softened incrementally, holiday cards with tentative warmth. A video call where Margaret asked after Audrey's art. Voice cracking on, proud. Full mending? Unlikely soon. But progress sufficed. They hosted a solstice gathering. Bungalow aglow with strands of lights. Friends toasting to touches that stay. Jess emceed toasts. Stories weaving their tapestry, the bookstore spark. Betrayals forge. Resiliences bloom. Winter wrapped them cozy. Snow blanketing the garden. New Year's Eve on the rooftop. City sprawl twinkling below. Evelyn pulled Audrey close, from that wrist touch to this, grateful for every scar. Fireworks burst. Their kiss timeless. In bed later. Lovemaking was owed, bodies arching in candle flicker. Evelyn's mouth worshipping Audrey's breasts. Fingers curling inside to elicit waves, Audrey reciprocating. Tongue circling Evelyn's core until ecstasy arched her back like a bow. Afterglow whispered futures, adopting a rescue pup. Road tripping the Pacific Coast Highway. Gallery walls in their forever home. Spring 2026 dawned with expansion. Audrey's solo exhibit at PNCA drew crowds. Critics lauding intimate cartographies of queer endurance. Evelyn's org won a MacArthur grant. Her keynote at a national conference going viral, justice isn't linear, it's the hand reaching through storm. They bought rings, simple gold bands. Inner engravings, coordinates of Powell's Corner. Climax arrived subtle. Profound, a dawn hike to Multnomah Falls. Mist rising like incense. At the bridge. Evelyn knelt properly this time. Box velvet and trembling, Audrey. You've touched my soul. Be my always. Tears streamed as Audrey hauled her up, yes. 1,000 times. The kiss cascaded with the water. World renewing. Their wedding. Small and fierce. Unfolded June at a Yamhill vineyard, vows exchanged under arbors heavy with grapes. Jess officiating with humor and heart. Dresses flowy white. Bouquets of wild roses, dances to Brandy Carlisle under string lights. Honeymoon in the San Juan Islands. Kayaking coves. Nights in a lighthouse keeper's cabin, bodies entwined to waves' lullaby. Passions reignited in salt air. Years layered like Portland's rains, adoptions of a mutt named Sage. Then foster turns mentoring queer youth. Conflicts ebbed. Not absent, job stresses. Family frictions. But met with tools honed, communications blade dulled to bridge. Audrey's books illustrated bestsellers, Evelyn keynote TED. Voice amplifying margins. In quiet evenings. Wrist touches lingered, Evelyn's fingers on Audrey's pulse. A ritual of presence. Their story. No fairy tale but human hymn, love as verb. Betrayals forge yielding grace. Healing's journey endless. In America's mosaic, flawed. Vibrant, they carved space. Proving tenderness triumphs tumult. Moments stayed. Not frozen. But evolving, gentle. Enduring. Alive.